Alrighty. Young lass was there this week. We ended up having a look at the garden. They're going to rip out a bit of the old garden and replace it with a few natives. More promises that she's going to get some of the young guys to do that. I hope these promises are a bit better than the other ones when we started building the garden. Anyways, want to talk a bit about work. I know somebody said I shouldn't, and I understand where they're coming from in regards to talking about specific clients and stuff like that, even if I don't name them and whatnot. As you all know, I've got an entrepreneurial mind, and look, I've only been at this joint, let's face it, it's only been a week, and I can see so many things where they could do a hell of a lot better than they are. And one of them would be, there's stacks of them, but let's start somewhere. One of them would be advertising. I know that they've got an ad in the yellow pages, which is basically, you got the white pages, which is your proper phone book, and then you've got the yellow pages, which is your, businesses. And essentially, it's what most people open up when they want to find a business that does something. So they charge like an absolute fucking wounded bull to advertise in it. In fact, a friend of mine who I used to work for many moons ago in my late teenage years had a business, and he advertised in the yellow pages. And this is not a full page ad, this is an alright one, but not huge. We're talking $98.99. Right, they're like fucking 17, 18 years ago. It cost him 10 grand. 10,000 bucks. And I believe this mob has I know they have an ad in the yellow pages, and it probably cost them $25,000, maybe even $30,000. I haven't actually looked at it, but I've been told about it by, basically the boss's twin brother, and because I work with him quite a bit, and yeah, they have trouble, with some advertising, as a lot of people do, with the hit and miss concepts. You can spend money on advertising, and sometimes you just, it's a wasted ad. But you put it in the right publication and you actually make real dollars out of it. And in all honesty, I have found a great way that they could advertise. It didn't take me, because I'm always thinking about cost cutting and efficiency, because that's sort of my training is efficiency in production lines. I got a Cert 3 in competitive systems and practices. Not that that really means much, but because I'm so frugal, plus having a bit of that training, I'm always looking at every business I go into. I can see failings in it. Not necessarily failings, but just inefficiencies, and some of them are huge inefficiencies where they blow tens of thousands of dollars a year and see nothing for that tens of thousands of dollars a year. Just real dumb things, and things that are not organised enough, or they've been set up with a certain sort of paperwork which is now pretty much redundant, or they're using paperwork for a part of the business that they used to do, and they no longer really do that same thing anymore. They focus more on something else, but they don't have appropriate paperwork. But just stupid little organisational things that mightn't mean much until you're in there, and you just think, bloody hell, all this is going to take is just a notepad, or this form to be a bit more straightforward, and it's going to be a lot easier. And there's things that, just don't really make a great deal of sense in regards to that. I don't know if it's like, first of all, I could cut the advertising cost by bloody near $30,000 a year. Secondarily, I can see we sort of turn up to jobs, but nobody ever writes the damn time down, and then you don't know exactly how long you've been there for. And I think it's one of the things we just need a little notepad to say what time we got to a job, what time we finished, because we get to the end of the day, and then when they write the sheet out, and they're buggered to, and they're trying to add it all up and work it out and say, well, someone rang me around that same time, so let's go through my cell phone call log, and oh shit, it could be all avoided, you know, quite easily. And there's another way to do it with multiple stuff, and it was a place I went into, but everybody was busy out the back or something. That's when I was looking for jobs, and I sort of thought, what could I have to offer them? And it's a good system all the same. It's made mainly for, they have two systems. One's for tracking agricultural produce, and it's just like a barcode system sort of thing. And the other one is for expensive equipment, earth-moving equipment, trucks, like as in big trucks, and shit like that. And what it is the GPS tracker. And you log on, you have this they have this website, you can log on and you can see where your vehicles have all gone for the last month and where they are right now, particularly if you hire out earth-moving equipment and you fear that it's been stolen, or you know, are going to take it to some area where it's a bit of a high-risk situation or whatever, especially if you're going to take it over to Africa or something. I don't know if they do Africa, but I do know that whatever you put one of their trackers in, you can track it in real time and see all its different positions in the last month just by whacking this box on. And I think it would be a smart idea to have something like that in a truck in a way, or at least just make a point of getting a notepad and writing it all down. It's another one I've seen. Now, as you guys know, my brother-in-law and sister sort of have a business. Not going to go into great detail. Well, I'm going to have to tell you a little bit. It's basically building engineering consultancy, and when they told me how much money they made for the year, my response was, fuck that, you could have got double that sitting on welfare. I'll put it like that. Maybe not quite double, would have been close to. I said to my sister, you really want to think about this if this is worth going ahead with, if you're having so much trouble. You know, is the point of trying to have this business, if you could go and actually work for somebody doing the same thing and be earning $80,000 a year, what's the point of struggling along with a business that you make half of what I made sitting on welfare, you know, or if I was to sit on welfare all year? And, you know, she said basically what it was quotes. That was a problem with their business. It's also a problem with this business too. I'll get into that in a second, but with her, we want to build an alternative building. So they want some straw bale house, which is perfectly legal and passed here. But because he's, you know, or mud brick home, which is also another one that's sort of allowed, but because he's got the engineering degrees and all that, he can show them exactly what beams they can put in and what not. Now, sometimes they build them below standard, and he goes out there and assesses it and tells them what they need to modify, the beams that need to be strengthened, whatever they've got to do, usually to be able to basically save the house from demolition. And, you know, that'll just be a one straightforward sort of a thing, and they go and build it, and then, you know, he gets his guy on the side that he's still getting his license for this himself. But to actually give it the basically occupancy certificate or you know, certificate of residency or whatever it is, where it means you can move in there. Long story short, when they do new houses, they do it on a quote. And they say, you know, so many $1,000. And, you know, then it's, well, we want one house. And then it's, oh, we want to see our options. So next thing, you've spent all this time on these CAD programs drawing out 6 houses. And then they thought they had one person sealed and it was all done. This person comes back 6 months later and asks them the exact same questions. So he researches and he sends these questions. He's about to send the questions off, and then he thought, I swear they asked me this before. He went through his old emails I asked him 6 months ago. And it's sort of all about, you know, you can give a quote, and if you give a quote, you'll be strung out for fucking months. At the end of the day, this customer has still only paid about a third of what they're supposed to be, and they strung the bastard out with about 6 times the amount of work that he expected to do with the initial quote. Fuck quotes. My sister said we have got to stick to hourly rates and tell them no quotes. And it's the same with this place. I'm not really supposed, you know, well, it's not that I'm not supposed to, but somebody has suggested it, and they're right, really, that I shouldn't talk much about individual customers, but I'll put it like this. Customer we went to literally yesterday, they got a quote, and you can tell that they've got a quote because it writes it on there on the form. But also the dead giveaways, you turn the page over, and the boss has got like this inventory log where they've gone out and they've assessed the things in the house, and then they've written like the number of chairs, number of couches, number of tables, you know, TV or not, amount of lampshade, all this sort of stuff, bedside tables, drawers, written it all down on this like this inventory log. And then from that inventory log, they make a quote. Most removals are from one house to another. You load up at one house, you drive to another house, you empty. Well, these guys got a quote for 2 hours. We're supposed to do one pickup, you know, load up the truck, and one drop off at the house. Well, we done one pickup and 4 drop-offs in 4 different bloody buildings across the city. And it took us, it was at least 3 hours and 20 minutes. I'm pretty certain it was 3.5 hours. It was at least 3 hours and 20 minutes. And they were quoted 2 hours. And the boss got paid for 2 hours. And we got paid 2 hours for 3.5 hours work. Oh, yeah. Which probably actually put us below minimum wage. If I had a removals business, there would be no quotes. Just saying. The other thing which I'm told by, there's a guy who started about a week before me, and he is a veteran of the industry, so to speak. He's worked for a few different guys. He's been in removals for 20 years. The other day, for instance, and this actually happens pretty often, I got to drive to the capital. And this guy has been in there for 20 years. He's got his last speeding ticket recently, and it's only a matter of waiting a month or so for a court date, and basically he's lost his licence. Simple as that. So anyway, I was driving the truck, and he was telling me about all the different funny stories they've had involving boyfriend and girlfriend breaking up, and then the police turn up because you're stealing the furniture that I bought when we first got together, and load the truck 3 times, unload the truck 3 times. He's telling me some stories, but he also told me, and this is the way this place here runs, you only get paid for when you turn up to the customer's house to when you put the last item in the customer's new house. That's what you get paid for. And if you start, you know, you'd knock on the front door and start loading stuff up, drive to the next place, unload the last thing, bang, that's the time you get paid for. And that can be anything from 2 hours to 4 hours is generally the ones I've seen. Unless it's interstate, but you know, you've got to have been there a little while to get any of these interstate things, and I think it's really the one particular guy that does most of the interstate stuff. Now, that means, and this has happened a few times already, that if we have to go to the capital, or this one edge of the capital, to start doing removals, I will drive an hour there and an hour back again, and I won't see a single dollar for those 2 hours worth of driving. It's just the way it is. If I hit something, I'm probably liable, but I'm not even getting paid for those 2 hours worth of driving to the house in the capital and to move it from that house to another house which is only 2.5 miles down the road, and then all the way back again in the dark, and you know, driving there and back to the customer's house, to the new house, and from the new house, well, basically just from the customer's, from the depot to the customer's first house, from the house they've moved into back to the depot, you get nothing, and you spend 2 hours driving. There's a day there where we went from about 8 a.m. through to 7:30 p.m. and that was that day, and we saw about 7.5 hours, even though we were working for 11.5 hours. We only saw 7.5 hours pay, but that's industry standard. I think that's sort of, you know, that's industry standard, and that's just the way it is for all removalists. But in my mind, and in the mind of friends of mine and other people I've talked to, including the boss's twin brother, who can see the point people are coming from, it's pretty much bullshit. You're working for nothing. You know, I'm still driving their company truck, and if I smashed it, I'd be paying for it, you know. But this is the thing, you know, I reckon if I had it, I'd structure it differently, where you get a lower rate for, you know, you get the same rate driving from the old house to the new house as you do when you're loading it. But I'd just have a blanket sit-down rate anytime you're sitting down in a truck, you know, for the jockeys who load stuff up. Anytime you're sitting down, whether we're driving to or from the capital, from the old house to the new house or wherever, you get one rate. But while you're actually loading the truck and unloading it, you get something huge, like not $24 an hour, but more like 30 or 35. And then you get like a flat $7 an hour rate for sitting on your ass. No matter if we've got stuff in the back or not. Where, you know, and I think that will give you the chance to retain a lot more stuff. And the other thing is, the vehicle I'm sitting in now has a particular thing done to it to make the fuel cost lower. Same with my main car. You know what? You can do that same thing to diesels. Propane. And how many trucks do you think they've got with it? 0. They're all just straight diesels. And if I was doing removals, I'll tell you the first thing I'd be doing would be getting the trucks converted to propane. Because a lot of the major companies, the large companies, do exactly that. Even with their blooming cement trucks and all this sort of stuff. Some of them even have natural gas conversions on some of the big trucks, but they also have propane conversions. Propane is easy because you just go to the gas station, you fill up, just like I do with this thing here, just like I do with my own car. Natural gas, it's a bit more of a complicated thing because you might have to have a bowser at the company, blah, blah. But, you know, propane, they sell it all over the country pretty much. Most of the country anyway. And I think that would be a good move too, particularly for doing interstate runs. You'd save a mountain of diesel. It only uses 30% of diesel because it needs that to create an ignition, and you just basically have it take in the propane just like a carburetor, just straight through the inlet manifolds. And it's not terribly common. There's not many places that do it, and they probably don't know of a place, but I do know of a decent-sized joint that does it in another city. And, yeah, they'll do trucks and all that without a problem. In all of this, don't be terribly surprised if in 2 years' time I end up as a removalist myself, because I just see so many holes and so many things that could be improved on that are straightforward and save huge amounts of money in advertising and a fair heap in fuel, plus change the pay structure to be able to hang on to staff better. And I'll tell you what, I'm seeing all this in a week, and I wonder how much more I'm going to see. And I sort of still need to learn how to do some of the tricks of the trade, although I'm learning a handful, I still haven't learned enough. I'd still like to find out about their insurance arrangement and how things like this sort of go. And over time, you know, just like with the nursery, you find out all the ins and outs of the business because they just get mentioned to you as you're there, and hopefully that happens here. And hey, you know, it might be bloody Link the Removalist yet.